We've got the March 19th election. It's a primary election just around the corner where you have to go and essentially publicly state which party you are voting for. And you say, I want a Democrat ballot or I want a Republican ballot. And then you get the ballot and only Republicans are on the Republican ballot and only Democrats are on the Democrat ballot. And that's the primary process we have in Illinois. Not like the caucuses where people get together and they publicly debate things and candidates and such, but for the March primary here in Illinois, that's our process. We have to go to the polling place and publicly say, I want a Republican ballot or I want a Democrat ballot. Then you go and vote. More than half of the state house seats that are up for grabs right now, the party's basically already determined. There's a little thing that parties can do. If nobody was on the ballot for the primary, they could put somebody in for the November election, but we'll see how much that happens across the state. But more than 50% of the state house seats up for grabs, the party's already determined. But some at the state house want to change the election process from what we're using now to a ranked choice system. What is ranked choice voting? Well, essentially, you get a whole list of people, and then you vote by rank. Number one's your most favored, number two's your second most favored, number three's your third most favored, and so on. And then when they tally all of that up, if somebody gets 51 plus, then they win. But if not, then there's like a weird thing where all of a sudden all the votes shift to your second favorite, and then they compile it that way. So ranked choice voting, they're talking about implementing that in Illinois. Never mind states across the country looking to A, either have already banned ranked choice voting, or B, thinking about banning ranked choice voting. In Illinois, you've got a task force that's investigating that. They've had 3 hearings. They've got another one coming up this week to look at it. And in particular, a lot of clerks across the state that have to run the elections, raising some concerns about costs, about transparency, about faith in the elections. I was able to run into Sangamon County Clerk Don Gray at the Capitol last week and talked with him a bit about some of the concerns he shared with the ranked choice voting task force that, again, met last week with another hearing coming up this week.
Yeah, it's nice. It's that the County Clerks Association's got a good relationship with the members of the General Assembly to continue to cultivate a strong relationship of the potential of election policy of the future. The ranked choice task force has been just that, good discussion about what it takes to potentially transform Illinois' form of being able to cast votes in certain jurisdictions. As an election administrator, we're trying to make the point that there are a lot of things that we've got to be paying attention to. The ballot development, the substantial expansion of the ballot development leads to the potentiality of more multiple paged ballots. Every time that we add a multiple page ballot, there's a greater expense. It takes more people to facilitate, communicate, and understand how to cast this form of election. So expenses are going to go up for election judges and other support personnel. And you've got to provide for the proper resources that you got a quick, efficient form of election on election day. So there's more poll booths that that would probably be needed, more tabulation equipment. So there's a lot to focus on in the full totality of ensuring that we're doing this correctly, that it's understandable, and that it's effectively done correctly.
And when I've been listening to these task force hearings in the past, and the second hearing, there was a clerk that asked, what problem are we trying to solve with ranked choice voting? What's the big overarching problem that people who advocate for this feel that's going to be solved if the state upends the voting process and brings in ranked choice voting? And Clerk Gray, he talked about some of the concerns there are about the idea of ranked choice voting.
Yeah, and election administrators don't pay a lot of attention to political outcomes, we're just here to try and ensure that you're getting an accurate, transparent result. And, Illinois' structure of how we elect today with the many more levels of government than most states operate, we're just not properly in the right foundation yet to facilitate, I think, impactfully of a ranked choice voting election.
So costs, infrastructure, training, transparency, but also you've got the need for continued trust and confidence from voters in the system. Would ranked choice voting help that, or would it harm that? Here's, again, Don Gray, Sangamon County Clerk.
I want to keep folks in mind, too, that, having an expedient outcome is important. And in this form of election, in ranked choice, it requires to have all of the forms of data within it. Statute today, we don't have a finalized result until 14 days after an election. We got to get all those late qualified ballots back on time. So, we want to have trust and confidence in the system. And, as we continue to have more discussions about where we go from here, there could be a time and a place to effectively do this.
So, Clerk Gray, looking forward to future meetings. State Representative Maurice West, who's the co-chair of the Illinois Task Force on Ranked Choice Voting and Election Systems. I also talked with him last week after the meeting, and he shared that indeed it was good to hear from the county clerks sharing their concerns.
It went well. Everyone who came, their voice was heard, their opinions were heard, and they'll be taken into consideration. And that's exactly what we want for this particular task force. And so I'm thankful that the clerks came and gave testimony. We had the Chicago Board of Elections provided testimony in the virtual space. And now our job as a task force committee is to document what they said and see where it leads from there. So, yeah, today went well.
So the idea of this task force, they want to produce a report so they can tell the General Assembly, hey, this is what everybody's saying, this is how we could possibly pull this off, with the eye of possibly having ranked choice voting for the 2028 presidential primary. So for 4 years from this week, they're looking at having ranked choice voting for that. Will that happen? What does that look like? Will this get hearings in the House Elections Committee, which is also chaired by State Representative Maurice West?
Honestly, too early to call. We still have other meetings to have. Next week we have a meeting that's focused on the equipment that we have here in the state of Illinois. So we still need to dive into more information. So it's best that I keep that one in the back burner until we know what's going on.
So clearly a lot more discussion is going to be had about the idea of ranked choice voting, and we'll update you on that as we get more details here with Bishop on Air. Like, subscribe, but also be sure to check out thecentersquare.com/Illinois each and every day regularly with stories of what's going on across the state, but also at the Illinois State House. And also, please go and subscribe to Illinois in Focus. Illinois in Focus. Search for that on all of your podcast servers. Search it up, Spotify, iTunes, so on. Illinois in Focus, a weekly digest of what's going on at the Illinois State House, powered by the Center Square and America's Talking Network. So get on it. It is Bishop on Air. Appreciate you guys being here each and every weekday morning.